Hi Year 6, welcome to day 9 of your Maths Easter School. It's Mr Dinsley here from Grace Darling, and today's Maths involves equivalent decimals, fractions and percentages. To start with though, you've got a couple of arithmetic recaps to complete. So, nice short division to start us off. We've got 1,206 divided by 9. So how many times does 9 go into 1? It's 0, carry the 1. How many times does 9 go into 12? Well, it's 1 time with a remainder of 3. How many times does 9 go into 30? It is 9, 18, 27. 3 times, remainder of 3 again, 28, 29, 30. And then how many times does 9 go into 36? 9, 18, 27, 36. 134. Fractions. Subtracting fractions, well, we don't have a common denominator. So how do we work it out? Well, first of all, any whole number as a fraction, you just put it over 1. 1 whole, take away 3/8. And then using the butterfly method, or also known as the wigwam method as well. To find a common denominator, you multiply the denominators. 1 times 8, 8. Left-hand numerator, pointing where the direction it's going, 8 times 1, 8. And the right-hand numerator, 1 times 3, 3. 8 skipping ahead. When the denominators are the same, when you have a common denominator and you're adding and subtracting fractions, you keep the denominator the same. 8 take away 3, 5. So your answer being 5/8. Just a point, over the next slide, you will see me write some fractions like that. It is exactly the same, it's just for space, because I don't have much on the next slide. So here you go. If you haven't already, please pause the video and complete the table. If you have done it, then brilliant. Then you can just crack on carrying watching the video and we'll get the answers. So I've also included on the right hand side of the page a place value sheet because it might come in handy later on. You've got to complete the table, the fractions, the decimals, and the percentages. And just to note as well, it does say simplifying all fractions. So for a reasoning paper, you do need to know how to simplify fractions. So making sure that you have got your fraction in its simplest form. If you have not done that, why don't you pause the video again, give it a go, and then play the video afterwards and see how you did. So 1/2 is 0.5 as a decimal, which is 50%. Well, 0.5 as a decimal, 50%. To go from a decimal to a percentage, you times by 100. So 0.4 multiplied by 100, 40%. Now to find the fraction. A percentage is out of 100. Brilliant. We've got 40 out of 100. But as I highlighted, that is not in its simplest form. So what we can do to do that is we could, as we've got a 0 that's able to cancel, let's get rid of those zeros straight away, 4/10. But you should be thinking, they're both multiples of 2. They're both in the 2 times table. So how many times does 2 go into 4? It's 2. And how many times does 2 go into 10? It's 5. So we have our fraction of 2/5. On to the next one down below. We have got 1/4. Now a quarter, guys, is just one of those that really you need to remember. One of those ones that has to be just in your brains, ready to go. It's used so many times across maths that we just need to know that 1/4 as a decimal is 0.25. And that should be nice and easy to transfer to a percentage. Remembering decimal to a percentage, multiply by 100, 25%. Quarter, correct. Quarter marks if it was in a test, for example. Using that to go down below, yes, you from a decimal to a percentage. So from a decimal to a percentage, you can times by 100. What about doing the opposite, the inverse? From a percentage to a decimal, the inverse, the opposite of multiply, divide. So 35%, well, divide by 100, 0.35. Again, thinking about our place value columns, 0.35. Well, if we look, we've got a 5 in the hundredths, so we know we're going up to the hundredths column. We can start with a fraction over 100, and we have altogether 35 hundredths. 35 is an odd number, 100 is an even number. How can you simplify? Well, looking at the last number, a 5 and a 0, we should hopefully be thinking they're multiples of 5. Okay, how many times does 5 go into 35? It is 7. 7 times 5 is 35. And how many times does 5 go into 100? Again, if you're not sure, there's absolutely no harm in doing a short division. 5 into 1, 0, carry. The 1, 5 into 10 is 2, and 5 into 0 is 2, so 20th. Make sure we're checking, because these are what we call equivalent fractions. What you have done to the bottom and the top, you have done to each other. So 7 times by 5 is 35, and 20 times by 5 is 100. So we'll pop 7/20ths into our table. Okay. Now, you can, for this next one where we've got 80%, you can obviously go through the same steps, and we can use our conversion chart at the top here from percentages to decimals to divide by 100. Or I'm going to focus us in on here. Excuse me, let's see if it will write properly. On here. 40% to 80. What have we done to go from 40% to 80%? Well, hopefully we've realized that it doubles. So we can just double everything else. 0.4 doubled, 0.8. We can check by saying percentage 80 divided by 100, 0.8. And then 2/5, well, 2/5 is 0.4, so 0.8 is going to be 4/5, and we can pop that in there. Okay, that's just another way of thinking about using all of the knowledge that we already have to work those out. Using the same sort of thing though, 3/4, we could think back to 1/4. And if I've got 1/4, as we can see here, we've got 0.25. Well, if I have 2/4, I've got 0.5. 2/4 equivalent fraction to 1/2. So if I've got 3/4, I add another quarter on, I get 0.75. And then these decimals percentage ones, the nice easy ones, times by 100, okay, or 75 over 100 as another fraction is 75%. Hope we're okay so far. Things get a little bit trickier here as we move on down. So I will get rid of what I've done here. And I think we're going to start with the, let's start as a fraction. Let's go as a fraction. 0.08, I'm using my place value chart. Well, we can quite clearly see, again, we're into the hundredths. So it's out of 100. And how many hundredths have I got? I have got 8. But as ever, we look back to the top, simplifying all fractions, 8 out of 100. Well, hopefully, again, we realize 8 and 100 are both even numbers. They are both divisible by 2. So if we divide 8 by 2, we get 4. And if we divide 100 by 2, we get 50. But again, 4 is even, 50 is even. So dividing again, we get 2 over 25 as our fraction in our simplest form. Let's go back to 0.08. Decimal to a percentage, back to the top, times by 100. Look back up to the percentage 80 as well. Thinking 0.8 is the decimal, so you know that 0.08 is not going to be 80%. 0.08, if we were to multiply that by 100, we can do that in the place value chart, because you move 2 columns to the left, you get bigger by 2 columns. So the 8 would move 1, 2. Okay, so you'd only have 8 ones, you'd only have 8%. Using the same sort of logic then, if we look at 6%, we would obviously, going from a percentage to a decimal, divide by 100 as well. We could move 2 columns down, and you will be able to see that it is 0.06. Well, if we were to put that into our place value chart, I'll just get rid of all the extra stuff here, 0.06. I've got a 6 in the hundredths column, so it's out of 100, and there's 6. Okay, I know they're both even, so divide by 2, half, 3 over 50, and you cannot simplify anymore because there are no no multiples of 3, multiples of 3 times table don't go into 50. So there we go. On to the next one, 0.22. Well, it doesn't really matter which way we do this. Again, you can go back between all three. You can check 0.22. In there, if we go from a decimal to a percentage, times by 100. If you were to times by 100, they both move 1, 2, 1, 2, so 22%. And then we've got, think about it, if we were to go back to where we wrote 0.22, I'll do this in red just so you can see the slight difference. 0.22, we are in the hundredths column, so it would be a fraction out of 100 again. And just as we've had before, they're both even if we half 11 over 50. And again, that is in its simplest form. We cannot simplify it any further. Now, 3/5. I'm sure we've come across fifths previously in our table. And we did come across 2/5 earlier on. We said 2/5 is equal to 0.4. So what's 1/5? Hopefully you've worked it out. Just half it to get 0.2. So 1/5 0.2, 2/5 0.4, 3/5 is going to be, adding on another 0.2, you get 0.6. Now, 0.6, well, again, looking back at what we've done previously, 0.6 times by 100, or looking at the 0.4 40%, 0.8 80%, it's 60%. So remembering what 1/5 is as a decimal is really important, a bit like that 0.25 that we've done before. Obviously there are other ways you can do it. 3/5. Well, percentages out of 100. What did we do to get our fraction out of 100? 5 to 100 we multiply by 20 to get 100. What we do to the bottom we must do to the top, exactly the same, in the same direction. 3 times 20 is 60. 60 out of 100, 60%, 0.6. Okay, again, another thing that we can do, I'm just trying to show you all the different ways that your teachers might have shown you. Well, 6/10, okay, you've got a 6 in the tenths, 0.6. So many different ways of moving between decimals, percentages, and fractions. Remembering that you need to see decimals, percentages, and fractions as the same thing, the same value, different appearance. So the last one, slightly trickier, but I know we've all done it. So 11 over 20. Well, we can't simplify because to make it tenths because we'd have a decimal. So I'm thinking I know that 20 goes over 100. What have I done to make 20 over 100? I have 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. I have multiplied by 5. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top, and in the same direction. 11 times 5, 55. So I've got 55 out of 100. I've actually made my simplified fraction bigger, but then it makes life a lot easier because 55 out of 100, well, if that's in a test and you got 55 out of 100, you've got 55%. Or think of it as decimals, we've got 55 hundredths. So we need to have, finishing at the hundredths, 55, there's our decimal point, 0.55. And that's it. So well done for having a go at that. I hope that all makes sense, and well done for completing that. And that's it from me for the videos. So if you, well, just left to wish you a lovely holiday, and I look forward to seeing all of year 6, but also my class and the other Grace Darwin class back in school shortly. Enjoy the rest of your holiday, guys.